Ingeborg already mentioned different kind of stations in our life. I have been working with Laurent Mignonneau now the last 32 years. And as Ingeborg already mentioned, we created many artworks. And in about 2019, we were approached by Karin Ohlenschläger, a well-known curator who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago, to reconstruct several of our artworks for our big retrospective exhibition. And the artworks title that are highlighted here in red, and you see that some of them are already quite at the beginning of interactive art in the early 90s. We were able to reconstruct them for the retrospective exhibition. And Karin's focus was to choose works that are dealing mostly about artificial life, about life-like metaphors, and also interactive works, which is a specialty in the art production of Laurent and myself. We often use algorithms, so there's a lot of mathematics actually also behind. Since my background is biology and botany especially, we often have also motifs from nature, such as plants, or also evolution. So often botanical and also biological topics are coming very strongly into our art focus. Then here's some exhibition information from the EMAL exhibition, from the ZKM exhibition, and from the Azcuna Centroa in Bilbao, where this retrospective has now been traveling for the last 3 years. And we are actually right now looking for eventually bringing it to Asia as well, because we lived there for many years. I will now go a little bit back into this idea of what is the system of artwork as a living system. What do we mean by this? By showing you concrete examples, and also highlight a little bit the background on motivation and topics that we are dealing with. This is the outside of the Azcuna Centroa in Bilbao. We often, in the area of human-computer interaction, combined in interactive art. And as you will see, we often also develop these interfaces by ourselves, and not only use off-the-shelf technology, but really also, I think you, Wolfgang, mentioned it, tinkering, I think, is one of the things that we are doing, really opening the black boxes, making things by ourselves, and also inventing innovative interaction experiences, and often provide systems where people can interact with artificial life algorithms, but also physical interaction. So often there's also a physical component in our works. I should look a little bit at the time, yes. First artwork that we did in '92, where we were still students of Peter Weibel in Frankfurt, was interactive plant growing. Here we created an installation. My background is also installation art, so it's often also an installation in the space that is important for us. Here we put real plants on pedestals, and when people touch these real plants, they see artificial plants growing behind on a projection screen. And the way people touch this plant is actually influencing the way the artificial plants grow on the screen. We do this by measuring or picking up the electrical potential of the real plant, and then transforming this data and translating this data into growing algorithm parameters that determine how the artificial plants develop on the screen. Here's just a sort of short explanation. We measure the distance between hand and plant, and this voltage differences determines how the artificial plants then, how big they become, what kind of colors they get, what kind of rotation they have, where they grow, and eventually when people interact with the real plants in the space, by touching them randomly, or you never know what people are actually going to do, you get quite a complex virtual garden that's always different depending on what people are doing in the physical space. And this is something I think also Wolfgang mentioned before. This is also a bit between order and chaos, and this is exactly what we like, because we find that this idea of life-like systems are often something that you can control and not control. And this is what we really want to do in artworks, that through the interaction, you conduct the algorithms, you influence the algorithms, but the algorithms are also, with parameters themselves, creating life-like systems. Another installation that we did a couple of years later, at that time we already lived in Japan, is called Eau de Jardin. Here we hang plants, real plants, from the ceiling in front of a very large projection screen. And when people come and approach these plants or touch them, they also grow those artificial plants on the screen. This time it's more like a top view. And you see here Laurent in the OK Center, or here another image. I hope you can see something. This becomes very light here. That these plants are really used as interfaces to interact with the visitors. Oh, where's my cursor? Sorry. Oh, okay. And you influence these living systems, or what we call living systems. Another topic that we got very much into is artificial life. Especially in the 90s, we started to explore generative algorithms, genetic algorithms, and genetic programming, which is basically imitating principles from nature, such as evolutionary principles, and trying to extract these principles into computer programming. It's again mathematics, and look for systems that can emerge and show novel features and have results that are not predetermined by us as artists or pre-designed, but the artwork in a way, and all what I say is quite metaphorical, but the artwork evolves through the interaction with the visitors and the system itself. Here you see a work from '94. It's a pool filled with water. There's real water inside. And people can see kind of jellyfish-like forms, but they are quite abstract. And they can touch the forms also in the water. They can interact with them, they can protect them, they can play with them, and also they can create them. So here we see from the Van Gogh Museum, when it was quite in the 2000s, where we showed it. And you have to really try this system, because it's quite fascinating to create these creatures by yourself and then see them evolve. They have a genetic code which is coming from their design. So actually your drawing is a genetic code which then determines how the creature moves around in the pool, how fit it is, and also what it is going to do. And this is a system setup. People can, as I said, as I mentioned, touch the creatures. They can play with them. But the creatures have also, I don't go into details now, but the creatures have a complex behavior pattern that is always checking how fit they are, how fast they are, how much energy they have. And you get the predator-prey behavior. And also eventually through the mixture of two parent creatures, a child creature inherits the genetic code of the parents, and a small kind of mini evolution takes place where you have some form of emergent behaviors. We see here a short clip. This is the touch panel where people draw any shape as they like, and then this shape that they have been drawing becomes alive, under apostrophe, and moves around, swims around in the pool very fast. And once it's in the pool, it wants to eat, and eating means killing other creatures, sucking up the energy of the other creatures. And if this succeeds, then the creature has enough energy to mate with another creature, so it has to find another creature. And if that succeeds, they merge together and make a child, and the child looks similar to the parents, but with some genetic mixture and genetic mutation. So we also use, like in nature, mutation as a way to introduce novel features and emergent behaviors. Here just a short shot from the reconstruction that we did for the ZKM, and it's actually, this work is now part of the ZKM collection. And we are quite happy that we could reconstruct this piece from 94. Here one more shot where you see me playing with the creatures. If I put my hand onto them, then they forget what they wanted to do. They sort of become a bit numb. But if you protect them too long, they also use up their lifetime and they die quickly. So users or participants really have also this sort of responsibility to play and interact and also help the creatures to evolve further. This whole idea of evolution is something that we also exercised in other pieces. Here, for example, a piece from 94, phototropy. Here visitors get a flashlight. I think you see her having a flashlight in the hand. And they can feed artificial insects, a bit like moths or butterflies or different sort of little bees. And if they feed the insects with light, these insects reproduce, they make children. They again inherit the genetic code to the next generation. So you always have some form of evolutionary structure where you never know exactly how the next generation, maybe they are becoming faster and reach the light quicker. But there's always this very playful aspect as well, where the visitors give light to the insects and help them to reproduce. But if they give too much light to the insects, they also kill the insects. So again, this idea, this delicate balance between you as a visitor playing or feeding the artificial life, but also you can also eliminate the artificial life. So we always like this idea of very delicate balance between giving life and taking away life. This is a typewriter that became very popular, has also been shown a lot. Maybe here we're talking about media archaeology. When we moved back from Japan, which is a very high-tech country, when we moved back to Austria, we were fascinated by finding a lot of old machines on the flea market, like old radios, old typewriters, basically media archaeological devices. And so we came to this idea of readapting an old typewriter and turn it somehow into a computer by connecting every key of the typewriter to an interface that Laurent constructed. It's hidden inside the machine. And when you type actually physically on the typewriter, you can create real text that is projected on a piece of paper. It's also a real paper, but the paper also moves around with the paper tray, and it has a projection on top. And what happens is you type text, and then the text turns into letters on the screen. But then as soon as you turn the handle of the real typewriter, this text transforms into little spiders that look very abstract, a bit like very simple creatures. So your text actually transforms into animals, artificial animals, that are encoded directly from the ASCII code of the text that you type into the genetic code of the creatures. And what happens is actually quite fascinating. You type your text, it transforms into little spiders. They move around hectically on the piece of paper. I think we have a short sequence here. And at the beginning, you don't really know what's going on, but once you start typing and experimenting, you see that there is actually a logic to it. Because if you write AAA and turn it into a creature, it always looks the same. But if you write something else, the creature looks different. So there is a logic to it, but there is also this idea of randomness, because you don't know exactly when the two creatures or two spiders meet. They make a child, and then the child moves around on the piece of paper as well. And it's definitely a lot of fun and has been extremely popular wherever we've shown this piece. This is a work that's technically more simple, but also was quite popular. It's called Portrait on the Fly. It's, this time we didn't really invent any technology. We just used the standard screen with a webcam. But Laurent wrote a very clever software where he has about 10,000 flies that are moving around randomly on the screen. But as soon as someone puts him or herself in front of the screen, the silhouette of the person is being detected by the software. And then the flies they have a very simple rule. They just want to sit wherever they detect an outline. And by this simple rule, you get quite complex behavior. I show you maybe on the video, it's easiest. And the portrait of the person who experiments this is being displayed or recomposed by the flies, but the flies also move around very hectically and go away quickly. So the portrait that you see is always in constant flux and in motion, in movement, and you only see it in this very instant when you keep still for a short moment. And this has also been very popular. We showed it a lot. And I guess also one of the reasons is people really like to see themselves. I think everyone has this sort of selfie culture. But then again, also this idea of a fly that is kind of not so nice, but also fascinating. And I think most people, when you talk to them, they say, oh, I don't like flies. But in this installation, we heard that this idea of the fly is something that sort of triggers quite a lot of maybe deeper emotion about memento mori, life and death. So I think there's a lot of like hidden meaning in the symbol of the fly. Then we had more flies, this time also in more public spaces, and we come from flies to ants quickly. This was in a large media space in Azcuna Centro in Bilbao. We had the good luck to have a very large screen, and people, when they entered the building, they saw themselves in kind of black and white as an image, but they were also being attacked by real computer-generated flies, and eventually they could play and see themselves being followed by huge swarms of flies, which is maybe a bit unpleasant, but at the same time also fun to play with. So here the idea was to also let people experiment and experience interactive art in a very intuitive and very fast and very easy to access way. The same can also be shown inside. This was a shot from the OK Center in Linz, where we had it on a larger LED screens. Actually, here's Susanne Pech. She came to the opening of the retrospective in Linz. Here maybe one more shot, just to show you how you are being followed by a big swarm of flies, which again had this a bit creepy effect at the beginning, but can also be quite fascinating to experiment and run and improvise with your body. And the last piece I want to show you is ANTopolis, where we see a short animation here. We were lucky in 2021, this was 2 weeks between the two lockdowns in Austria. We were lucky to make a very large public display in the MuseumsQuartier in Vienna and projected on the Leopold Museum, and also had an interactive station where you could place yourself in front of a camera and then see your face being composed of ants, so not flies this time, but ants. And I want to show you, let me see, just here a few images. So maybe we don't need the sound. This is actually Benesta Dika, who was the curator, and I think she knows you well. And what was a very interesting experience for us is if you do these kind of things in public space, you have to deal with a very different attention span because, people are not expecting to see art in public space. So if you want to grab their attention, you have to provide some very kind of fast feedback or make it in a scale so that people understand that they can participate here and, eventually also come up to the interactive station and, like you see here, make their own portraits and then project them on the screen. And it was quite beautiful to see also these ants, similar like the ones that we see in the gallery, in the Cordil Gallery, crawling around on the facade and basically taking over the whole building. And yesterday Wolfgang asked me, why are you so fascinated with ants or animals? I think it's also, we talked about this a little bit, It's even though they are relatively simple organisms, same like with flies, they do in a collective or in a group have a very complex behavior. So we really like this idea of taking principles from nature, such as maybe swarming behavior or evolution or genetic inheritance, and try to reconstruct it on the computer, of course in a more simplistic and in a more reduced way, but to show this fascination for nature and transport it into an interactive experience. That would be it from my side. This is the book that you mentioned, the MIT Press book. We were very happy and lucky that Peter Weibel for the retrospective really also insisted that we make a good book about it and put all our artworks inside. And we were lucky to publish this with MIT Press 2022. And yeah, here are some more books that we've been doing, Art and Science of Interface and Interaction Design in 2009, I believe. And another book about interface culture, which is the study program that we are running in Linz in Austria. And here an old book from 1998, which was about art and science and bringing together different people like Erkki Hutamo, also Peter Weibel, of course, was there, Wolfgang Strauss, Monika Fleischmann. So this idea of bringing art and science topics together through interactive experiences is something that we still continue to be fascinated about. That would be it from my point of view. Thank you.